government research projects have long been the stuff of conspiracy theories, but some of them are real. They actually happened, and they're worth knowing about. For example, this week, in response to a Freedom of Information Act request, the Defense Intelligence Agency disclosed that it had, in fact, funded research into UFO-related technologies. This would include the invisibility cloak, warp drives, and anti-gravity. The DIA spent $22 million from 2007 and 2005. The program apparently was initiated by then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada. Nick Pope is one of the world's experts in this. He wants to investigate UFOs to the British government. He joins us tonight. Nick, thanks for coming on. It does sound like the core assumption of this research was that UFOs are real.
Yes, it really does. This is something of a bombshell, I think. For months, the Defense Intelligence Agency and the DoD have been trying to spin this story as, well, it's just about advanced aerospace weapons threats. But now we have this document which shows quite clearly what they were looking into, and it's nothing to do with airplanes. It's as you say, anti-gravity, invisibility, cloaking, wormholes, and warp drive. Some of this is about space travel.
These ideas are derived from objects that the U.S. government observed in space, presumably?
Well, we still don't know much of the story. We really only have a handful of papers and documents on this. I got this from the DIA's Office of Corporate Communications, and we're still trying to digest what this means. There are 38 papers that they produced under this contract, defense intelligence reference documents, looking at things which frankly sound like science fiction, and yet they're not. Our tax dollars have been spent on looking at this, and you know, there's one of these papers which absolutely is critical. It's looking at something called the Drake equation, and the Drake equation is, this is supposed to be a way that astronomers can calculate how many intelligent civilizations there might be in our galaxy. Well, look, if this is not a UFO program, if this is just about Russian and Chinese aircraft, what the heck are they looking at that for?
Why wouldn't the U.S. government just say, I don't think it'd be especially controversial, we believe it's possible that there are other forms of life in the universe and we're looking into it. Why hide that?
Well, I hope that's exactly what they will now say. I think we know that this letter, which I've now acquired and which has been released under the Freedom of Information Act, we know that this went to Congress. We know that the Armed Services Committee is looking at this very seriously. They're also looking into those videos that we've talked about before of the Navy jets chasing UFOs. So I think the real question is what's going on behind the scenes? And I'm hoping that in the next few weeks, maybe months, Congress is going to say more about this. The Armed Services Committee will speak out, and maybe we'll have public hearings at which all this will be revealed.
So former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who was for many years in a position to have access to this information for certain, has basically said in public, I know a lot, I think this is real, but he hasn't gone farther than that. Have you spoken to him? Has anyone spoken to him?
I've not spoken to him personally, but I've seen some of his interviews, I've seen his statements, I've seen one of his documents. And for anyone who's trying to say, well, this isn't really about UFOs, it's about next generation aircraft, missiles, and drones, no, it isn't. Harry Reid has made it perfectly clear this is about anomalous objects in our airspace, and call them UFOs, whatever you like. You know, we take them seriously. The government has been looking at this.
Why all the lying? That's what piques my interest. It always piques my interest. Nick Pope, thank you for all the work you do on this. The non-crazy, sober, responsible work you do, and I appreciate it. Well, that's it for us tonight. And let me just say, there is an awful lot of lying, and none of it happens by accident.
Hello again and good evening. So you just saw a news report about our government spending billions of dollars on a secret UFO project. You also heard them say that they found out through the means of declassification of government documents. As far as I know, could be wrong, but it's my understanding that you have to wait a certain amount of years before that kind of information is even available to declassify to the American public. So that should tell you how old it is. Now, we've been put aside if UFOs are real or not. Just put that aside. We've been faced with UFOs since Roswell. That's where the big buzz mainly started, in my opinion. Ignore the fact that there have been documentation of cave paintings and clay tablets of UFOs and whatnot. That's besides the point. Mainstream media is when Roswell happened. That was so long ago. And this entire time, our government has been saying there's no such thing as UFOs, there's no such thing as UFOs. Well, if that's the case, why are they spending billions and billions and billions of our money on something that doesn't exist? This story that they're portraying is more than what they're really saying, as you're starting to hear from what I'm saying now. So if something doesn't exist, and you've been pushing that down our throat for so many decades, why are you spending our money on something that doesn't exist? And lie about it. That is two false flags in itself. You're spending our money on something that doesn't exist, and you lied to us, the American people. Surprise, surprise. So, what can we do to stop this? It's time for everyone to stop complaining about how our government treats us, about Donald Trump and the wall, this and that, whatever you hear about the news. It's time to end all that and come together as one nation and put the order back in its place so that the government can no longer control us the way that they are trying to do. I'm not looking at this story about if aliens are real or not. I'm looking at it as, why are you stealing our money for something that you said doesn't exist for decades? Proving that you've been lying to us over and over and over. So if you're lying about that, what else are you hiding about? I'll leave you with those thoughts. I hope everyone has a good night. Until next time, signing out.
Bye.